So this is our finished drawing, including all the errors that I made on here. Too fat there. Wanted this part to go in the back. This one should have stayed in the front. So I'm just going to turn it over, and I've got this fine point. It's called a Pilot Precise. I would strongly suggest that you do not use a Sharpie, because a Sharpie will make a mess out of this. You can also use a pen like this, which is a rollerball pen, but you also have to be careful using any of these types of pens, because if you press down too hard, let me show you what will happen. As I'm inking over this, if I press down too hard, it's going to transfer the graphite or the pencil marks from here right onto your paper, and then it'll start smudging if you're not careful. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through here and redraw this with an ink pen. And again, this is called a Pilot Precise. I like these because they're like ballpoint pens, so they click, but it's got a super fine point on it. And since I want this one to go through and be in the front, I'm going to start right here, and I'm just going to ink around. This also enables me to make any corrections to the drawing as I'm inking it. So again, I'm going to maybe go a little bit more shallow here. And there are certain parts on here, like this tentacle over here, I think I would rather it went like this. So again, this is a correction that I can make on the back side of the drawing. You can also do this onto another sheet of paper. But since I don't have a ton of paper, I'm just going to ink it on the back side. The other thing is I've got what's called a light table or a light pad. It's a piece of plexiglass that has these, I don't know if you can see it too well, but there's these filaments of some sort in here, and this plugs into my computer so that I can trace on it. If you don't have anything to trace on, you can tape this to the window and trace it on the window. So I'm just going to go all the way around this and trace right over the top of the lines that I've already made on the other side. And just make any corrections as I go. Maybe make his smile a little bit bigger here. Move the mouth over here just a little bit. So you can change this up as you go if you want to. Otherwise, just trace all the way over it. If you don't have a fine point rollerball pen, you can use any kind of marker. Just be careful if you're using a thick marker, like those Crayola markers, to only just use the very tip of it. Let me show you what I'm talking about. And that's not a good example. So I don't have a regular black marker, so I can't really show you. Oh, here's one. This is actually a wet erase marker. But notice the difference in the size of the tips. This one is really fine, and this one's a little bit more fat. But you can still get a pretty thin line if you're careful by just barely touching the paper. So I can actually use this pen if I need to. If you've got those really fat Crayola markers, you just have to be really careful when you're trying to do the fine lines. So take your time and trace over these very carefully. I'm going to go back to the thin one because it's the one I prefer, and I do have it, so this would be a good time to turn on some music, some easy listening music. You want the most calm music that you can find so that you're not herky-jerky making all kinds of wanting to thump your hands and thump your feet and all that stuff while you're doing this delicate work. So again, just carefully continue going around. I'm not going to bore you with watching me draw the entire thing. So if there are any other details that I want to put in here that I haven't already discussed, I will create another video. But all I'm going to do is just go right over the top of these. The nice thing about this is you can see on here this side has all the pencil marks, and I want you to leave the pencil marks on it when you take the photos. We're not going to erase anything, but when we're finished inking, we'll take a photo of this one and also put that on Google Drive and Google Slides and embed the Google Slideshow in your Google site. One thing I do want to point out also, just so it's a little more accurate, I'm going to curve this part of the leg. This is where you can make some changes. I'm going to curve this part of the leg. This part of the tentacles of the octopus. And then just to exaggerate it, I'm going in the opposite direction instead of just going straight up. And then on this part, I'm going to do like a web, like a webbed foot, and curve it like this. Just to really exaggerate the look of the octopus's tentacles and where they're attached to his body. Because that's a little more realistic, and we can be a little more realistic if we want to. So you can see this starting to take shape. On the thin lines, on the highlight that's on his head here, I'm just going to do a single line. Very carefully trace over the backside. You also might want to continue using a slip sheet to rest your hand on, because the last thing you want to do is work on this ink drawing and then smear it with the side of your hand. This will keep your hand clean, it will keep your drawing clean, and it'll prevent smudges. So you just work on the tentacles one at a time, and you can start to see it coming together here. So I'm just continuing around, and I'm going to make changes as I go to parts that didn't work as well on the other side. So for instance, you can see here where I made the mistake of making this tentacle too skinny. I fixed it on the other side when I did the thick lines around. So now on this side I can fix it and ignore the other lines. So you can continue to make these corrections in the inking part if your pencils were not accurate or to your liking. And for that matter, if you want to fill up the space more, you could completely change it by doing something like this. And I don't like how fat it is here either, so I'm actually going to cross over here and make this area a little bit thinner. So you can continue to design as you draw. And if you make little mistakes like this, don't worry about it. Later on, in another assignment, I'm going to show you how to fix that on the computer using a program that's very similar to Photoshop but free, because Photoshop costs $20 a month for students. And I found a free one that's so much like Photoshop, at least an older version of Photoshop, that it might as well be Photoshop. So again, you can sort of see some inconsistencies here. But if you're careful, you can just go back over them and smooth them out like this. I'm going to change this one a little bit also. And bring it up and overlap on this one. Just to make it more interesting. The other thing you can do, since I don't imagine too many of you have one of these tables or these light pads, if your laptop or netbook lays down flat, you can do this on top of the screen. So if you lay your laptop down flat, I'll find the website, but there's a website called Blank Page or White Page, and it's just exactly what it seems. It's a white screen that you can use for things like this. Please make sure to get permission from your parents before you do anything like that, though. They may not want you to use the screen as a light table. One other thing I did is, because the light was a little bit too intense, was I taped another sheet of paper on top of here, which protects the light pad, but it also diffuses the light a little bit more, make it a little softer, because it's very difficult to stare into the light when you're trying to trace. So you'll notice I'm not following exactly, in some cases, the lines that are on the other side. This is a classic example, or a prime example I should say, where I'm making the lines a little bit fatter on the inside, which will make it easier to color. And by the way, one other benefit of doing artwork like this is that when you take the photos, if you take the photos properly, this can become a coloring book page that you can put on Etsy and sell. One word of caution though, you have to make sure that it's an original drawing. You can't just copy something off the internet and make a coloring book page out of it, because then you're getting into an issue of copyright. Copyright means somebody owns it, and if you're going to use it, you need to give them credit, and in some cases you need to pay them for it. So for instance, I got this drawing, or this drawing was inspired by something I saw online. It looks like this. So this is something from a company called CreateBox, Monsters Under My Bed. And the character that we're drawing is actually that one. But if you notice the difference between that one and this one, I've changed it up quite a bit. So if I could find out who the original artist that did this drawing was, and I sold this coloring book page on Etsy for, let's say, $1 for an electronic download that someone could download and print from their printer at home and color, the fair thing to do would be to find the original artist and split the cost, or split the profit with the artist. That's the fair thing to do. And, by the way, the legal thing to do. So there's a, if the artist saw me selling this drawing, and I keep using Etsy as an example because that's the best example I can think of, but if the artist who did the original thing from CreateBox saw me selling his artwork on Etsy, he could take me to court and sue me and win the lawsuit, because it can be easily determined that I copied his drawing and put it online and tried to sell it. And by the way, I speak from experience, because people have taken my artwork and sold it online before without my knowledge, and I didn't find out about it until much later, beyond the time when it was possible for me to take them to court. And the amount was so small that it didn't make sense to take them to court anyway. You just have to know that it happens all the time, but that doesn't make it right. I don't like the way this one goes up here, this tentacle here. So I'm actually going to take it down like this and change this tentacle to go like that. So here again is an example where you can change the artwork if you don't like the original part. If it's too confusing like it was a minute ago, you can change it. like I just did. So I'm going to post these drawings also in case you want to download the one that I did and color it. I'll post it on Google Classroom and also on the website. And make it a little bit larger so that you can color it after printing it. Because right now it's only 1/4 of the size of this paper. But with the computer and the proper way of photographing it and saving it, you can enlarge it to fill up an entire sheet of paper. So I'll do that so that you guys can access it and color it. Probably over the weekend or next week. One of the things that I'm always interested in is learning ways to make money from your art. Because it's one thing to say, oh yeah, I love to draw and I wish someday that I could make money from my artwork. But the truth is, there's places where you can make money from your artwork today, even if you're 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. Because the people buying the artwork don't care how old you are. And you might not make a whole ton of money. In fact, there's an entire industry called clip art, also known as microstock illustration. And in most cases, you might make $1 by selling your artwork in these microstock or clip art companies. But the thing is that if people like your artwork, they can continue to download it, and every time they download it, you might make a quarter or 50 cents, depending on which companies you sell your artwork to. And again, I'll show you throughout the quarter what those companies look like. I know of 2 men, one in Canada and one in Texas, that I have never met face to face, but I've corresponded with via email, who have been earning a living, one of them for over 30 years and the other one for about 15 years. And all they do is they sit at home and think of ideas for cartoons, for clip art, and they draw them up, save them in multiple different formats, and sell them to clip art companies. I don't know where that tentacle goes. Where did that one come from? Let's follow this one around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm missing one. Oh, this one, 8. Oh, I see. This one comes around that way. Got it. Like the way I think out loud? So this one comes around like this and goes through here, and I'm going to make it a little bit wider so that hopefully it makes sense. So again, you can sort of see, you don't have to trace it exactly. You can make little corrections or changes to it as you go. Also looks a little bit like a maze or a puzzle of some sort. Still don't know where that one goes. Where is that one? Oh, it wrapped around there, okay. I think I changed something. It's getting a little confusing over here. So this one wraps around this way and does a curlicue right here. But since it's backwards, oh, I see, it's right here. If you're not careful, you can get really confused, like I just did with this tentacle right here. And if you've ever seen an octopus in the ocean, especially, or video I should say of an octopus in the ocean, because you really can't see them, they camouflage themselves. I saw a video of a scuba diver chasing an octopus, and its camouflage was so good that even the photographer or the videographer following it almost misplaced it because it hid itself on top of a rock. So that's my finished sketch. And I'm going to take a photograph of this one, and I'm going to go ahead and cheat a little bit down into this box below here. And later on I'll show you how to clean this up using the computer, probably during the second quarter or the second semester. I'll show you how to take it onto the computer and fix it, because there's still some things that are confusing in here. And until it might not make a lot of sense visually. So that's the finished drawing.